So I'm going to start with a little introduction to EHEDG, because not everyone on the call is an EHEDG member. Then I'm going to talk a little about the microbiology of chocolate, a little overview on how we make chocolate and where the CCPs are, which are the critical control points in HACCP. And then some things where hygienic design can negatively affect the quality and safety of chocolate. And then finally, just a quick summary. So when we talk about chocolate, we're really very focused on one organism. It's not the only issue in chocolate, but it is probably the one that we're most concerned about, and this is salmonella. And the interesting thing is that there are many, many different serotypes of salmonella. All of them are considered pathogen. So where does it come from? Where are we getting the salmonella, and can we keep it out? Well, the way that cocoa beans and nuts are handled, really they are harvested and then they're laid out to dry and ferment. Now, if you know that salmonella comes from, the environment, and birds particularly are known to carry salmonella, and you can see that this, raw materials are laid out, then you can sort of imagine how contamination might occur. So the raw beans are normally harvested, dried, and shipped to a plant, and there they will be either roasted as a bean or roasted as a nib. And this roasting step, or even better, as a bacterizer, which is a point where the steam is injected. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have moisture, it's easier to kill salmonella. So what we do is after we clean the beans, we will inject moisture in the form of steam in order to kill the salmonella, and then we will dry roast. Cocoa liquor can then either go into chocolate mass, or it can then be separated into cocoa powder and cocoa butter. Now, as I showed you, you have that entire process, but at the very, very beginning, you had your cocoa beans. And here, you would either remove the salmonella via a dry process, which is the roasting, and you can have continuous or batch roasters, or you inject steam and go through bacterization. The supply chain is very long, so often where the beans are harvested and maybe even roasted may be in one continent, and then the beans that are clean now are shipped to another continent. There can be many shipping methods, ships, trucks, tankers, and things can move from plant to plant. So it's, I think, unique in a way that the kill step happens so early on in the process, and then after that there is no further kill step. So there is a lot of work between harvesters and suppliers and manufacturers and carriers to try to maintain the integrity of the chocolate. So the following are hygienic design failures resulting in salmonella contamination in plants of the chocolate industry. Now, the first one is air handling. If you have an issue with air handling, it's usually a low-level contamination, and we've seen incidences where the exhaust from a raw area is too close to the intake of a clean area. And EHEDG actually has guidance on air handling systems. Today, we don't have wet cleaning in the chocolate industry. An introduction of water into a plant is risky. So when there is an issue, normally we clean by flushing with some types of ingredient or disassemble and hand cleaning or removal for offline cleaning. We can wipe surfaces with alcohol or cloth, but it is significant and very, very difficult. And hopefully we have some questions.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much, Matilda, for this oversight of the wide scope of challenges that chocolate producers are dealing with regard to food hygiene. We have some questions that are actually very practical, and that's what we like, because this is supposed to be a practical webinar. You concentrated on salmonella mainly in your presentation. What about listeria and E. coli?
Yeah, so listeria, unless you have an area where you're wet washing, listeria is not usually so much of an organism of concern in chocolate plants. It can be detected if you have a big cooler, or maybe you're a bakery that's using chocolate. Um, but listeria is different ways of approaching. The reason I focus on salmonella is that it is associated with dry products and it's very difficult to remove. And so I really think that the efforts that you take to control salmonella will potentially eliminate other organisms. So for example, if you find coliforms in your facility, you're going to be looking for some kind of water, and some kind of water that's not treated well. And so if you focus on your water systems, like I mentioned in the one, where you're testing them regularly and sanitizing them or adding sanitizer, then potentially you shouldn't really have a coliform.
One question related to the scope of working group. Are the working groups aimed at defining a hygienic design requirement for chocolate industry equipment together with engineering suppliers for deep dry cleaning? Is the working group focused on critical equipments or planned differently?
Yeah, so we did we're going to meet next month and we're going to do an initial brainstorming. Essentially, we don't want to rule anything out at this point, but we are going to pick some particularly difficult to clean equipment and try to provide some guidance on that. But then we're also going to look end to end and see if we can define some places where we could do some more regular cleaning. And so, and we have, representatives from a number of very large cleaning companies with us. We also have representatives from the manufacturers who make the chocolate equipment, as well as the big users. So I think what we're going to do is we've already talked about tempering and enrobing as areas we want to focus on. So yes, I think at this point the scope is not fully defined, and it's highly likely that it's going to be a multi-stage working group where we may break up and focus on certain pieces of equipment to start with, and then have a sub-team that's looking at flushing and creating breaks as one group, and then a whole group maybe working on services.
Those were the questions for today. Matilda, thank you very much for answering them and for your presentation. The hour is almost full. We are through, but before we say goodbye, everyone, in the chat, I included the link to register for the upcoming next webinar about hygienic design, maintenance, and installation by Dimitri Tavernakis. So please have a look there, click on it, and you can register right now. Matilda, this has been insightful. Thank you for your time. We all know how busy you are, but yet you manage to contribute to EHEDG time after time. So thank you very much for your contribution today.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.